Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lysha and I am the owner of Lysha Be Creative. Today's tutorial is this You Are Magic Milky Way with vinyl design. So of course I'm going to show you how I put together today's tutorial, as well as list all of the products that I've used for today's tutorial down in the description box down below, as well as any discount codes that I have for you. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. So today we are starting out with a 30-ounce modern curved tumbler. This is from Maker Flow Crafts, so I will list that down in the description box. So we're going to be using this style cup, which I don't often feature on my channel, but I did snag a few of these because I've been wanting to try to vinyl wrap one of these. I know it can be done, but I've been so nervous to try, so I have a couple of these, but I decided that this would be kind of the perfect style cup for this design that I had in mind. So of course we're going to start with the prep process, which is to sand and scuff up the surface, really remove all of that manufacturing coating off of this tumbler, and then wipe it down with some 91% rubbing alcohol and a paper towel. Once I'm sort of finished with the prep process, we're going to go ahead and take this over to my spray booth tent and get this spray painted. So I'm using a series of different paints here, all of which I will list in the description box here, but I'm going to be using Skinny Dip, which is like a beige color from Colorshot. I'm also going to use Emerald Isle from Rustoleum, as well as another turquoise, deep turquoise color from Rustoleum, and then I'm also going to be using Hello Handsome from Colorshot. So these four colors together are really just going to play off very well off the vinyl that I'm using and the glitter that I have in mind to be able to apply to this cup. So I'm going to start with the beige color, which is actually going to be where my sort of gold color glitter is going to be going. And so I'm just creating a swirl here with my beige paint, sort of that initial sort of swirl around the cup and then a second swirl along the back side that doesn't quite go to the bottom. I'm then going to go in with the emerald green color and just along the line of the beige, I'm going to follow with that green spray paint there. Don't forget the bottom of your cup as well. You want to make sure that you get all of your colors down there as well so you can add some glitter to that section too. Then I'm going to follow in with the deep turquoise, and so the deep turquoise, although is not going to have an exact color that matches in glitter, I thought that the deep turquoise would really help to showcase the blend in which I want to try and establish with the green glitter that I'll be using, as well as the navy blue glitter. So once I'm satisfied with the deep turquoise, I'm going to go in with my Hello Handsome color, which is that blue color, sort of that ink blue color. We're going to go ahead and apply that in all the open spaces. Then I'm going to go back really quickly and just follow up with my beige color Skinny Dip once again. I just wanted to widen that section in the front and along the back side just to make sure I had enough of that color present. So my spray paint is now dry. It took about 20 minutes or so to be completely dry, and we're gonna get started with the glittering process here. So I'm showing you all the glitters that I'm using, but I'll also show you and walk you through those as I apply them. But we're gonna go ahead and do the epoxy method glitter application for this tumbler. And I'm doing this because I know I'm gonna wanna spend a lot of time really working with my glitters and making sure I get a really nice blend. And so I wanna make sure I'm using something that's going to give me a longer work time. So I typically err on using epoxy as my option for glitter application when I know that I'm going to be applying more than just one or two colors to my cup. So my cup is a little bit cold, and so I did have to use a little bit more than the 2.5 mLs that I typically would use. So certainly a way to remedy that is just to put your cup in front of like a space heater or in a warm section, or even use your heat gun to apply a little bit of warmth to it. That way your epoxy does slide on like butter. Otherwise you might have to use just a little bit as the months get a little bit cooler. So we're starting off really strong with the chunky nugget glitter. That's from Bella Nieve Creations, and right now we're just creating sort of like a very sort of sketched out version of where we want all of these colors to lay. I don't want to go in too heavy-handed with any of my chunky colors because I want the sort of smaller cuts of glitter to help with the blend. And so if I put too much of my chunkies on, I'm gonna have a little bit of a muddled mess. So I like to take my time with this. So this color is Parcel Mouth from Glitter Makes It Glitter, and I've just followed in all those emerald green sections. Now we're gonna follow up with the navy blue, and this is Night Sky from my Aisha Creations. I'm just going to sort of, again, use this glitter, the chunkiest of all of the cuts of glitter, to just establish like a really nice landscape of where I want all of the glitter to lay out. That way, when I'm following up with my finer colors, I really can just fine tune these areas, but still have sort of those big, bold sparkles showcasing through all of those finer glitter colors. So once I'm satisfied with Night Sky, we're going to go ahead and move into the second chunky. So this one is the Groovy Queen from my Asia Creations. And so this one is just slightly more like a medium cut, I guess I'd say. It's not quite fine, but this is like a medium cut. And so I'm going over kind of heavy-handed over the nugget glitter that I had laid down initially, really to establish a really harsh area of the gold, because I do want a lot of gold present on this cup here. So once I'm satisfied with that, we'll then go into our Emerald City, which is from Peachy Olive Glitter, and that's going to go directly over Parcel Mouth. And so this is more of a fine cut glitter that we're going to be using. And at this point here is how I am going to try and establish a little bit of blend between each of the colors. Now, knowing that I'm going to be laying some, pigments and things over top of this glitter, I'm not really being too hard on making sure I get the perfect blend, but I do want to make sure that it does look pretty seamless and pretty flawless as the colors kind of change as you swirl the cup around. So I'm just making sure to blend into each of the colors next to the color I'm working on. The final color for the blue, I should say, we're going to go in with is Blueberry. And so this is a fine cut of Night Sky, and I'm just going to cover up all of those exposed areas where my navy blue color is going to sit and reside, and making sure I get some of that color in as well on the bottom of the cup. So filling in all of those spaces there until I'm satisfied, until I can't see any of the epoxy still showing through without any glitter. Then after that, we're going to go ahead and give this a pretty vigorous tap off just to make sure we get all of the excess glitter sort of removed, because the final glitter that we're going to go in with is Rain from Myra Makes It. So this is Myra's glitter, and so this is a pretty fine gold, and I want to really make sure that I don't contaminate my glitter here. And so I'm really focusing here on the gold sections, of course, really kind of just letting it go as far as the glitter goes all over those sections, but trying not to get any of that glitter too far into the green and blue sections. So this is the final glitter that we'll add here. I will go ahead and tap this off pretty vigorously and make sure that I spray seal this so I don't get too much movement of my glitter before it goes on the turner. Now that we're on the turner, you can notice and see that I already have a good couple coats of epoxy already on my cup here. And so I've just applied enough epoxy over my cup and let cure until my cup was pretty smooth. It's not 100% smooth. We still, of course, have a rough top edge and bottom edge, which is typical, but we want to make sure the majority of the cup is smooth so that we can apply these pigments and colorants and not have any sort of bumpy, lumpy finish. So I'm just applying an initial coat of epoxy here, a little under 10 mLs here, just all over the cup. And this is just really going to help the pigments and colorants that I add to here really smooth out and glide on nicely so that I'm not working on a dry cup. And I want to be able to produce a little bit of movement with my heat gun. And in order to do so, I need a little bit of, a slippery surface to be able to work on. So we've got that initial coat of epoxy applied. I'm going to go ahead and torch this and just let this spin for a little bit while I separate my epoxy into a few separate medicine cups. So I'm just going to separate out my epoxy here. We are going to be using 3 colors today for the Milky Way swirl portion of this. And so 2 of the colors are actually from Simply Sarah Customs. She does like mica powders and other pigments that you can use. These 2 were in the BAMF custom subscription box, and so I was really excited to try these out and use these. So this first color is called Dyson. It's like I would say it's like a really deep blue, but it does give me a little hint of emerald as well. And then we're also going to be using Vladimir, which is the like tan beige color that we're going to be using to apply to the second medicine cup. Just enough of that to really change the color of the epoxy. You don't need too much. Mica powders really do go a long way. In the final cup that I'm going to be adding colorant to, we're just going to use some good old white epoxy dye from Alumilite, 1 drop here of that, and mix that up. So we have a little bit of white that will go on the cup as well. And I chose these colors, 2 of which of course were already in the subscription box that comes with the vinyl, but I also added the white because the vinyl does have a bit of white in it too. And so I wanted to make sure that sort of the whole aesthetic of the cup matches the vinyl and the decal that we're going to be applying. So although you guys have seen me do Milky Ways before, we haven't done one in a long time. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the process here. I'm starting with my darkest color here, and the way that I apply my pigments and colors to and swirls to cups is I'll try and ensure that I am putting colors on top of sort of the opposite colors, if that makes sense. So for this Dyson color, which is a little bit of like a deep navy color, I'm putting that over the gold, making sure that I don't get any of that over the green and blue sections because it really would look washed out. And then taking sort of that beige color and applying that over those green and blue sections and trying to avoid those gold sections where it might look a little bit washed out. So I'm just applying sort of like a few streaks here with my stir stick here. Then I'll go in with the white and just fill in any sections that look a little bit bare and blank. And so with the white, it doesn't matter really where I apply it to because it really will show pretty vibrantly over every section of the glitter here. But I also don't want the white to overpower the entire cup. So I am trying to be mindful of how much of the white I apply here and making sure that my lines are not too thick here so that we don't get too much movement with my heat gun. Now that I've got my initial sort of swirls down on the cup, I'm going to stop my turner and just sort of hand turn this while I apply some heat to all of those swirl sections. I'm focusing on some of the sort of larger sections of the swirls to really get them to bloom a little bit and just start to move around the cup slightly. Applying too much heat, you're going to end up with too much movement and you're really going to end up with sort of like a very swirled look. What we're going for here really is just a little bit of squiggling, I like to call it, with my colorants, just to give them a little bit of movement, but to make sure that the colorants aren't running kind of wild and all the way around the cup. So at this point in time, I always like to take a paper towel and just with my gloved hand, remove anything that just doesn't look right to me, making sure that I am really paying attention to how much my colorants are swirling. If they're doing too much swirling, just sort of dragging my finger through that and cleaning those sections up, because I can always go in and add a little bit more colorant to the cup, as you're going to see me do here. So I'm just taking away anything that just was starting to get away from me or was just starting to look a little weird to me. So playing with, inks and when you're doing Milky Ways is all about just how you feel. It will, of course, start to change a little bit as it continues to swirl, but I like to just kind of watch it for a few minutes. If I feel like I'm doing too much, I might walk away for a couple minutes and come back and see if some of those swirls have changed a little bit, and then make a decision to add more or to be completely done. But you definitely want to do a little bit more of less is more, if that makes sense, especially if you want your glitters underneath to really showcase as well. So I've just gone back in with each of the colors just to establish a little bit more of those, especially with that Dyson, which kind of disappeared a little bit on me in those gold sections, and then just applying a little bit of heat again to get those newest swirls moving a little bit and get a little bit of squiggle action, as I'm calling it, moving around the cup. Once I'm satisfied with this, I am just going to let it spin for a little bit. I then like to change directions of my turner and get it to spin in the other directions, which will slow the like pigments from swirling in that same direction and kind of make them move back in place. So I'll let that sit and spin, of course, until it's cured. And then once it's finally cured, we're going to get into sanding. So sanding the top rim and bottom rim really is all that this cup really needed. It was pretty rough around these top edges, of course, with all of that glitter. So just sanding down with my 80 grit sanding block to allow for that little bit of stainless steel at the rim to be exposed. So we have somewhere for our final coats of epoxy to adhere to. And then of course we'll get the bottom as well. This is where you're going to make sure to get any sort of wobble that you might have to your cup, make sure that everything is flat and smooth, and make sure that that bottom edge is not rough. So once I'm done with sanding, I'll just clean this off with 91% rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, get it all cleaned up and sort of removed of any of my fingerprints and things before we move into applying our vinyl and decal here. So the vinyl that I'm going to be using, of course, was like this mystical butterfly decal sheet, or this vinyl sheet from BAMF Custom Creations. The only thing I did to this sheet was I cut out a couple of triangles. So these triangles are 3.9 inches wide by 3.9 inches tall, and I just determined that by just taking a quick measurement of my cup just to see which size triangle would fit best. So anywhere between like 3.5 and 4 on this size cup was going to be good. Basically making sure that I wasn't going to have any issues where the two triangles, although they're going on the top and then one on the bottom, aren't going to be too close to one another, and to allow for me to fit the large decal in the center of both of them. So that was kind of how I chose the sizing here, but certainly play with it, decide what works for you, especially if you don't choose to use this same style cup. So I've applied that top one there, and I've made sure not to apply it directly at the rim. I've gone just a little bit down from that, and I'm doing the same here, kind of pulling it up off of the edge there, because we will add a little bit of washi tape here to this cup to sort of outline this vinyl here. So this is a semi-transparent vinyl, which means it's got like white backing along the decals that are on the vinyl. So it's really vibrant and really able to be seen, but it doesn't have that white backing like you would from an opaque vinyl sheet. And so I want to really highlight and outline this with the washi tape here in gold to really just make these sections stand out from the cup. So I'm just going to take my time and use my washi tape, which I've gotten from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to go ahead and just outline these sections here. I'm being mindful as I apply the washi tape along the top rim and the bottom rim, making sure that I'm not at that top edge that we spent so much time sanding just a little while ago, because I want to make sure that I'm not going to have any issues where my epoxy during this section here, when I apply my final coats, making sure that it's not going to create any buckling or it's going to pucker or wrinkle towards that top rim. So really just making sure that I still have that fine line of stainless steel exposed at the top, making sure that that washi tape is smooth and there's no wrinkle to it. That way I can get a really nice smooth finish with my final coats of epoxy. Same process down here with the washi tape. We're just going to outline that triangular piece there before we get into applying our decal. So the decal that I am using is the You Are Magic decal. This was part of the decal sheet from that same BAMF Custom Creations box. And this box was for the month of September. So it was kind of a mix of like Christmas meets fall meets spooky time. It was a really unique box, and I really kind of like some of the patterns that came out of this box. This one and the other sort of butterfly themed or like mystical themed one were probably my favorites out of this box. And so you might see a couple other tutorials or some videos on my social media with some of these prints, just because I thought they were too cute to not want to create something with. So now that I'm finished with the washi tape, we're going to just get everything nicely trimmed off so I have that perfect triangle around that vinyl, and then we're going to apply our decal here. So this is a pretty large decal that we're going to be applying, and working with a curved cup can really be kind of difficult and to work with. So you're going to see me have to kind of work around the curve of this cup here because the decal is sized a little bit larger, and so it is going to kind of go over the curve of this cup as it starts to taper in. And so of course we know that creates kind of a host of problems when you're trying to put a decal on a cup that has a little bit of a taper. It tends to want to buckle in those sections. And so I'm going to show you how I'm going to kind of work around this. So we're going to start by applying, of course, that first edge of the decal here. Then I'm going to go ahead and use my squeegee tool to push on this decal and push off the backing. As I get to the edge here where I knew I was going to have some trouble, I'm just going to lift that backing off, and then we're just going to kind of hand place the rest of this section here. So zooming in here so you can kind of see what I'm doing, I'm trying to get this decal to be placed nicely over this initial section of the curve, and I'm having just a little bit of issue with the bottom section here. So a couple of things you can do here, one of which is you can use your heat gun and kind of attempt to you know, put a little bit of heat on that and stretch it. I didn't want to stretch this too much just because I knew it would look weird. So I'm going to go the route of cutting into the decal in the section that is just clear and just try and hand place this and kind of pull it and tug a little bit to get it to lay flat as best as I can. So at the end, it ended up being not completely perfect. However, I think I did a pretty good job with covering up any of the wrinkles that may have still been in a bit of the decal. So once I was able to get most of that decal applied, I did notice some wrinkles in the actual clear backing of the decal. So I'm going to use my craft knife to cut out those sections. That way they aren't shown when I go to epoxy and in the final coats. So I want to remove those crinkled or sort of wrinkled, crumpled areas, if you will. Remove those from the backing there. That way it's less obvious that this decal did not go on as perfectly as planned. So just sort of cutting around those sections. And again, this will look like this is completely flush against the cup. You won't be able to see the outline, but by removing those wrinkles that I had in the clear section, it really allowed for a better and more seamless look of this decal so that that wasn't shown in the final product. So I'm pretty satisfied with how this came out so far. And the very last thing we're going to do here is I want to make sure to seal these sections. So because we're working with washi tape, and washi tape can really be kind of a pain in the rear end when it comes to final coats of epoxy, it tends to like to repel for me. So I always like to go over those sections with some polycrylic. So this is minwax polycrylic. I always buy either the satin or gloss finish of this. And this really does help to keep my vinyl down and not have any issues with my final coats of epoxy and any repelling or lifting of those sections when I do those final coats. So once I'm done with this, I let this dry for about 20 to 30 minutes. Then this cup will go back on the turner for 2 final coats of epoxy, and here is the final look at today's cup. So I am so happy with how this one came out. I really love doing Milky Ways and swirls and things, and so I really felt like I was right back in my era of creating all of those beautiful swirls that I haven't done in such a while. But I hope that you guys did enjoy today's video. Of course, if you loved today's video, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. And you guys know that I'll see you again in the next one. Bye!